Hey guys, welcome back to the True North podcast. My name is James McKenzie, and I've got some special guests with us today: Brad Montgomery, Christopher LaRue, and Ryan Moore. This is the team that puts on the Frontier, including a couple other guys that aren't with us today. But this week, we wanted to come onto the podcast and share what this month's Frontier was all about. So if you weren't there, this will give you an introduction to all the things we talked about. If you were there, we're hoping to take kind of a deeper cut at some of the content and the things that we experience and have experienced in our lives through that. And so this month, we actually talked about John Eldredge's new book, Experience Jesus Really. And what we did is we showed the session 1 and 2 of his study guide and just reflected on some questions that were based out of that. And so for you guys, talk about the Frontier Monday night. What was y'all's experience? Brad, you led the night, did an incredible job.
Thanks, man.
What was some of your favorite things?
I love the Frontier. So if you haven't been to the Frontier, come. Okay, it's a great environment. It's a gathering. It's a monthly gathering for True North men. And if you're new to True North, you're even more welcome. If you got a buddy that hasn't been to any of the environments, you should bring him. It's a great place to connect. One of the things that we talked about at the start of the Frontier this week was how the gold, like the biggest value in the room, besides of course Jesus and leaning into him more and trying to get more of God in our life, it's just the men that you find there. Like there's some really good dudes at this gathering, and it never ceases to amaze me, like the gold, the nuggets, the wisdom that I get from people there. One of the questions, we just threw it out to the whole group, and a guy came back with a response just absolutely blew me away. I'd never thought about one of the topics that we were talking about. Never thought about it in that angle or that way. You just got great dudes there. Yeah. So come. That's your quick advertisement. Come to the Frontier. It's awesome.
I agree. And we do base camp, we do the ascent, we do summit, and like you don't have to have gone to any of those to be really relevant at the Frontier.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't gone to another True North event, like come and check it out and get plugged in, because then I guarantee you're going to want to get to base camp.
Yeah.
One of the things that really stood out to me at the Frontier was we broke up into these triad groups, right? And we asked questions and we talked, and that's typically like the girl thing. And it's whenever I'm talking to somebody and they're like, you're going to break up into groups and talk, they're like,
yes, dudes, it immediately puts you on.
Yeah, no, I'm
like
out.
on edge. You're like, oh gosh,
dude.
No, what? Yeah.
But
what if I have to talk to a guy with an arm growing out of his back?
Right. So So here's the thing: is like, so we watched one video and then we broke and we had a discussion and then we watched another video, and going from that first discussion back to the video, like we had you mic'd and hot. And the room was so loud with the discussion that you couldn't get control of the crowd because they were we had to turn the lights off to get everybody's attention. And that to me is just like, that's a win, because you've got guys that otherwise wouldn't be connecting. Yeah. And Jesus is just walking through that, and we connect through story. Yeah. And those stories are being told and those men are being heard. Yeah. That's that blew my mind.
It's what I think is unique. Again, I'm not trying to be a True North advertisement here or anything. Maybe it's coming out that way. But what I think is super unique about these environments, like Chris said, usually in these small groups, you got to wait for somebody to go first. And you have this just awkward silence. And when you come to the Frontier, you're not going to find that. You're going to find guys that are hungry to dive in, to get to know a different aspect of Jesus and go deeper into their faith. And they're not messing around. Like, they're hungry for it.
And it's real.
And it's very real.
It's authentic. That's what really just like...
There's no icebreaker questions here, guys. Maybe that's the best way to say it. There's no icebreaker here. We're just going to jump into it. Yeah. And I love that. Yeah. Like, there's no wasted time. One of my favorite, this has been a few years ago at these monthly gatherings. This kind of gives you a snippet, and it happens like this in one form or another every time the Frontier meets. Is there was a young man at a table that I was at because back in the day we were at tables and there was an older dude across from him, probably 6 of us at a table, and don't even remember the subject that we were talking about that night. But this guy, he's a younger, early 20s guy. He says, just got very real. And he said, I am 3 days sober and I have no idea how I'm going to make it to 4. I'm just being completely real. And the guy sitting across, probably 50s, 60s, he looked at the kid and he said, I call them kids because everybody looks like a kid to me. He said, I'm going to tell you exactly how you're going to do it because I am 35 years sober. And you're going to meet with me after this and we will do it one step at a time.
Wow.
Just a beautiful connection there,
Yeah.
right? I mean, stuff like that happens all the time.
Yeah,
at the
we
frontier,
see
all
we
the
see the
time.
orchestration,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's bigger than we are.
Yeah.
That's it. We couldn't plan it any better if we knew the guys and sat down and made table assignments or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like it just.
And we're not even paid to advertise, James.
No.
We're just like,
I know.
We're
We're
just
just
pumped up about
excited.
this. Yeah, like if you want to, further your relationship with Jesus, this is the place to be,
Yep.
man. Like there's something really cool happening here,
Yeah.
and you can be part of it. So come on.
Well, you've only been
Should
pushing
go.
it for 14 years.
I mean,
right?
14. No, I mean, come on. Yeah.
That's all. That's
Yeah.
all.
It's not too late. You can still come.
Yeah. I actually
Yeah.
took a video of the group time and I sent it to my wife just because the environment was so cool.
Yeah.
And she's a life group's pastor. So she drives people towards community. And her response was, wow, they are talking, like exclamation point, exclamation
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah.
so that just shows you like how special of an environment that really is. So
Yep.
Well, it shows us that guys, like, there's a need to be heard
yeah.
and seen.
Yep.
And I relate to that back from before my authentic walk with Christ and before I got plugged in with you men. And like, yeah, there's something to be able to tell your story and to walk in that with men and to actually be seen
To be seen
for who you are and not who you think you should be or
Yep.
feel like you want to be or
Yep.
fill in the blank.
Yeah.
It's good.
How was your night?
It was great. I think the group time for sure was my favorite. The Frontier looks a little bit different every time because it's just kind of like wherever God's leading us. And so it had been several months since we had done
Group
kind of
time,
a group time. And I think a combination of being in a new space, low ceiling, just a different environment, and then also just all those guys being super engaged and like hungry for it. It was just super cool. It was really loud in a good way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was super good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it was like going into that second video to get them like refocused was difficult. But then at the end of that second video, they were ready to go right back into it.
Yeah, it just erupted again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a good question. Different Sorry. Here's a podcast topic for later on. Why don't we see that more? Why don't we get that more? I mean, the dirty secret of True. You don't have to come to a True North event to do that. How come we don't? I don't know. I think it's cool. Something special is going on. So we can tackle that topic another day. But we should talk about that.
Good.
How come we don't see more of that?
Yeah.
I think it can be created a lot in the culture of True North. So True North men's groups and things like that. You have guys who really don't settle for the surfacey stuff anymore. Yeah. And to sit around and talk about the weather or just say, how's it going? And then really not get the full story is not really acceptable in the culture of True North. And that can seem scary, but I think a lot of guys don't realize that that's exactly what they want and need until they experience it.
I never thought about that. That is kind of normative of the True North culture. It's just like guys don't want to do that.
Yeah.
They want to
Well,
get into it.
We've been stripped down, right? So we've walked the path where we've laid down our lives. We've laid down the poser. We've killed that false self, if you will. We've gained our validation from our Father. We walk truly with Jesus. And so in that, like there's nothing to hide anymore. Like our sins are exposed. They've been forgiven.
Yeah.
I know who I am. I know what God thinks about me. So who cares what you think about me?
Yeah.
I mean, I want you to like me and I want to be your friend. But at the same time, it removes all those roadblocks to being real.
Yeah. Yep. It's good.
Yeah. So
sorry for sidetracking us.
No,
but
it's great.
So anyway, the
That's
frontier
good.
was cool.
Yeah, that was a great.
You should come.
Yeah.
It's a great. Yeah.
So Brad, tell us. So you led this month, and what we do at the Frontier is we always let a different group of or different leader lead the Frontier, and we want them to share kind of what's on their heart. And this month we landed on Experience Jesus Really, John Eldredge's new stuff. What about that initially drove your desire to, hey, let's dig in, let's figure out how we want to present this, and what message we want to share from that?
Well, we had talked about it a little bit, and I picked up the book, took my time, because part of the angle of the book is you want to take your time through content.
Yeah.
Our pace is already radically fast. It's challenging. This is super challenging content for me, especially. And again, one of the dirty secrets of True North is sometimes you get asked to respond and facilitate on stuff that you're struggling with.
Yeah.
Guess what? No, that was me. The first couple sessions, you can go online and get a summary of the book. The first couple sessions really deal with the age that we're living in as men, the information age, and how we experience Jesus is a challenge in this day and age, vastly different from like our Christian fathers or grandfathers in even 10, 20 years back.
Yeah.
With the pace of life, with where we're finding our refuge, where we're seeking God.
Yeah.
And it was challenging to me. So we landed on this. Session 1 kind of deals with the title of it is What Children and Mystics Know.
Yeah.
And the content summary is really kind of revolves around, where is God asking us to be more childlike in our faith?
Yeah.
Where do we feel the pull to social media and internet? And what is the pace of life that we're dealing with? How does that interact? How does that keep us from that experience of Jesus?
Yeah.
And then session 2 kind of dovetails into where we finding our refuge. There is Eldredge does a great job of working in Psalm 91. It's a great passage about he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty.
Yeah.
And one of the things that just struck me is, where am I finding my refuge?
Yeah.
We are more connected than ever.
Mm-hmm.
One of the points that we talk about is we have more information at our fingertips than any other time in history. And yet culturally as a society, are we really smarter because of that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that really helping? And to say it in a more theological way, are we taking refuge in the information that we're trying to dive into?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really kind of a broad overlook of session 1 and 2. We started with that, and I think the 3 questions that we kind of went over that I responded to that we threw out to the groups was, where do you feel the pull to the internet and the social media in your life? Where does that take you away from God? When do you feel that pull?
Yeah. Let's dive into that.
Yeah.
The 3 of us, or the 4 of us. Let's dive into that.
When do you, you guys kind of heard my response. When do you guys feel that pull to social media and the internet?
I mean, I feel it when I'm tired, or I feel it when there's a difficult situation in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And, as I'm listening to you, it just occurred to me, like we have more information in front of us right now. And like the tree in the garden that was forbidden was the tree of knowledge.
I thought about this. Yes.
And it just hit me, the knowledge of good and evil. Right. And so like there's like Eldredge will say that we weren't created to know everything about everyone all the time. Right. And like there's hierarchies, right? Where but there's delegation. So I know what's going on with what's
our village
right around me. Right. And then they may have knowledge of what's going on further on and further on. So there may be a long reach, but it's not my reach. I don't know my intimate, and then the extended, and then the extended, and then like what's going on in China. Like, oh my gosh.
It's a lot.
It's so, it is a lot.
Yeah.
And like, I tend to run to the mindless internet for comfort instead of stopping and going to God for comfort, or even seeking my family for comfort, because a lot of times that feels hard. And this is easy.
Yeah.
Pick up that device, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to point out, you know, the thing that I think Eldredge kind of talks about and frames it up well with is this is the system of which we find ourselves in, right? We're not trying to, this isn't a okay, you need to limit your screen time talk. This is kind of diving into what has the system really done to our souls?
Yeah.
Like what is the connectivity piece done to our souls, where you can find out what's going to halfway around the world at any given moment.
And some of this is necessary, right? It's like, it's the age we live in.
Yeah.
It's like connectivity is part of who we are. My wife has gone on like this extended hiatus from Facebook, and it's been really, really good for her.
Yeah.
But she has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And because like the church would announce things, or, you know, circles would announce things, like the announcements and the information's all on Facebook or on Instagram or social media or whatever. And so like there's this element of missing out if you're not there. And so
yeah,
there's almost this expectation too of people, like they will post news, whether a baby's coming or a baby was born or somebody's in the hospital or whatever, and we don't make like old school phone calls like we used to, right? To like our circle of friends,
or even show up at somebody's door,
or just show up randomly. But and so like if you're not on social media, you kind of do miss out on some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So some of it's practical, but I think it's a matter of like it is depleting in regards to our soul, right? Especially with like news all over the world, and then the worry and anxiety and things, like we can't do anything about most of that, you know? And so it's like, okay, well, how much time and attention are we giving that versus our unity with God? And everything in this world is fighting to drive a wedge between us and our relationship with God. Period. It's all distraction. And that's not to say some of it's not good, but a good thing can be bad when it's put in the wrong priority.
That's right. Yeah.
So
it's very true. There's connectivity in the internet in and of itself is amoral, right? It's not good or bad, but it can drive a wedge, right? And the question becomes, and Eldredge uses this word, amphibians. How do we be amphibians in this world, where you can be, yes, a part of the world, but also living in the kingdom?
Yeah.
Right. It's easy to talk about. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
Because back to the practical, what does that practically look like?
Yeah.
I mean, we would like step 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know that that's helpful. I think you have to go deeper to that. Like, what is the relational posture in my heart with Jesus? How do I get that back?
Yeah.
A list of 1, 2, and 3. Sometimes I need to do that. There are some disciplines, some spiritual disciplines that I can bring in. But at the end of the day, you know, we talked about the example of how do you love your kids? Did somebody give you a manual on how do you? No, they're there. You just love them.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's an element of getting back to that. And yes, as a part of that, there may be some practical things where we need to do, where you take a hiatus from Facebook.
Yeah.
I've done that. Super helpful, by the way. You feel a little bit more free. You do miss out on some stuff.
Yeah.
You miss out on Facebook Marketplace deals.
Oh,
but it's kind of freeing. It's also kind of nice, right? So I think, Bart, like to your point, Ryan, I think it is helpful to bring some timeouts or some practicality to that. I know what works for you guys. What practical things have you done that helps in that?
Yeah, I have to have pretty strong boundaries. God took me on a journey to discover how important the boundaries were.
Yeah.
He showed me how important and how much time was being taken away from my family, from Jess, that could be gained back.
Yep.
And so And there's the repercussions of that is I miss a lot of text messages and phone calls in the evenings.
Yep.
I'm pretty hard to get a hold of.
Yeah.
And sometimes like, and then my mornings with work, like you wake up, I have my 45 minutes to an hour of time with God, and then I'm getting the kids ready for school, and then I'm headed to work and I've got project. And so like sometimes it's the next afternoon before I'm even getting back with people. And that wasn't the norm for me 5 years ago. Like, I actually prided myself on, like, if
Get
you
back
if you
with people
call
right
or
then.
text James, like, I'm gonna get right back to you.
Yeah.
And I still there's honor in that, and I miss elements of that being part of who I am, but the trade-off of freedom at home to not be turning to my phone. Guys, the trigger reactions, like, that's the stuff that's like made me like get goosebumps is whenever I'm physically reaching for my phone for no reason
Yeah.
whatsoever.
I know.
And then I realize it in the moment. I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I doing? Am I like, I'm an addict? Like,
Yes.
and so the boundaries have been huge for me. And unfortunately, it's taken just seasons of being really good at it and then falling back in, and then the next season getting even better at it but then falling back in, like, in this the time frames kept getting squeezed, and I've been in the healthiest season of my life for months now, in relation to my phone in general.
Yeah.
And so I don't have the apps on my phone. I have a browser that I can go to. YouTube is like kind of the one place that I still go and find reels or information, or a lot of it's really good stuff. And so I go there, but then not having the apps helps my trigger reaction.
Oh, interesting. So
It's little tiny barriers.
if you need to do like social media, you'll keep it kind of on a
desktop. Yeah,
on
my
a desktop.
Facebook is only on my computer, and I don't
Very
have my
practical.
computer out at home.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, all those boundaries, and there's definitely still a lot more health to be gained.
Yeah.
And I'm working on that, but there's a lot of freedom, like, to breathe whenever you kind of get into this space. And I'm not perfect by any means.
Yeah.
And my wife would definitely
Yeah.
assure you of that. But, but it's good to have, you got to start with some boundaries. And I think putting the phone down as soon as you walk in the door, like we said on a recent podcast, talking about winning at home, like, you're not going to win at home by just staying on your phone.
No, you're not.
And so
It's true.
I'm personally coming out of kind of a struggling season. We're in construction, so we make money, and so kind of the lull between Thanksgiving and Christmas and the ramp up of the new year, like it's easy to leave my phone down, but when people start calling, well, now I'm doing business, and that's kind of needed sometimes, but I've got my phone in my hand already. And so then it just kind of
dovetails into whatever
right over to the next thing. And so like I'm probably a couple of weeks into like, you know what, I should probably not look at that thing now or research this other thing, or I just need to put my phone down and go stick it on the charger on the nightstand or whatever, away from family activities. And I'll tell you that when I do that, like, there's so much profit in the evening. Like, I can't help but think, like, if I've been looking at Facebook Reels or whatever, like I just wasted 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Like, it really almost makes me sick when I really think about it. I'm like, I could have been with my son or with a daughter or my wife, or I've got a to-do list that's 5 miles long. Like, I could have knocked something off of that, but instead I gave that to Facebook. Yay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I had to take Facebook off my phone because it was just a compulsion. I'd get on there, answer a text or something, and then it'd be, there's a notification. And then, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes goes by, whatever. And it's like, geez, that's no good, And so now having to get on the laptop in order to intentionally go on Facebook and answer messages or look at Marketplace or whatever, like, there's an intention there. And you just don't sit on there and scroll the same way on a laptop. It's just too easy on a phone. So that's cut the time down quite a bit. quite a bit. And then the other magnifier is too, my kiddos have phones and friends that they text constantly. And so seeing them, it's like looking in a mirror, you know, you really notice like
it heightens your
golly,
awareness to
yeah,
it, right?
you're like, get off your phone.
Yeah.
And then next time you pick up your phone, you're like, oh, well, I just told them to get off their phone.
You get off your phone.
Right.
Like, oh, yeah.
So I still spend way too much time on YouTube and lots of good stuff, but
yeah, no, I get it. A really good question, I think, to ask your significant other to go to the practical, like you did, is a question of, hey, honey, where do you see me getting pulled into social media and the internet? Be careful about that, because I asked my wife that, and she told me, and she wasn't wrong. And it was in the evenings, and before as I was getting ready to go to bed, turned into 20, 30, 45 minutes, hour of just, and that's not good. I feel the same way. You're like, what did I just do? Like, and that's kind of the gold time with kids. So again, and you can't win at home if you're doing that. So, wives, if you're listening to this, don't club your husbands over with that. Let them ask that question. But husbands, ask your wives that. Like, that's a really good question if you want to grow in this area.
Yeah. One of the other things that kind of Eldredge talked about is the amount of information that contradicts each other. Like, from one expert says this and one expert says that. And I found myself, like, I'm such a sucker in some things. Like, if someone seems smart and they know what they're talking about, and they reveal this new thing, I'm like, that must be true.
What's funny?
I hear the next thing.
We did this right before we turned the cameras on. We were talking about creatine, right? Well, what's the latest research on creatine? Yeah. We literally did that right here.
Yeah. And I told you exactly what the truth is.
That's what the truth is.
Because it was the latest reel I saw on creatine.
That's right. So it's
and it blew my mind. And so we're good to go for the rest of my life.
So should I or shouldn't I buy creatine? Because I'm like,
So, but that's kind of in the term John talks about is disciples of the internet.
Yeah.
And so I'm being discipled by these smaller topics. And then whenever contradictions come along, I'm confused. And usually my reaction is like, well, I'm not going to listen to any of it then. I'm just going to walk forward.
Yeah.
A cool thing about that I think the message of Wild at Heart and the direction that True North is going, like, that's one of those things that just absolutely captured me. And it has withstood the test of time because there's plenty of other information online that will argue against what we are trying to do and what we believe in with True North. And it's been so cool to experience, like, as much of a sucker as I am and all these other things, like, God, like, had just shown, like, no, this is true. This is good.
Yeah.
Walk that path.
So we need to hashtag this, True North, hashtag creatine, and find out what's happening, kid. Don't do that. He used the term, Eldredge used the term, it makes you very cynical if you hear all these different things.
You don't believe anybody.
Yeah. Whereas the opposite of that is, like you're talking about, it's, no, this is true. Like, this is deeper than.
Well, the flip side of that too is, like, he talked about wonder, right? And so we've removed this element of wonder out of our lives, and we've kind of become this microwave society of, like, I want the results in 10 seconds or less, or I'm moving on, I'm upset, I'm mad, degenerate, whatever, and, like, there's no mystery.
Yeah, we're not okay with mystery,
and there's no wonder. And so we have to have the answers. We have to have the research. We have to have the 5 bullet points here and 3 bullet points there so that we can make that decision. And I think really what I feel God's saying is, bring it to me. Right? Like, we should be taking our questions to God. Just in, like, I wonder what you're doing. I wonder where you are. I wonder what you would have me do in whatever situation. And that's not the same kind of wonder, whereas, like, the wonder of the mystical. And that also takes me to the point where he was, like, talking about the ocean. And like we live in this world and we live in a spiritual world, but we don't ever let the wonder of the unseen realm captivate us or capture us. So we just kind of refuse to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And his analogy was like being above the water, you just see the reflection and the waves. But when you put the mask on and you look down, like suddenly like boom, like the whole new world is there. And you're like, whoa, did you even know that was there?
And I think a big part of that too that stuck out to me was time. We've been conditioned to get everything instantly, as you said, right? And so when we ask God about anything, we expect an answer. Like we've been conditioned to get an answer, and God is outside of space and time. And you may not get an answer right away. And so where are we in like with being conditioned that way? We have to really be okay in the waiting, right? And just be still and know. And be okay with the mystery and trust that he'll come through. You know, on whatever it is we're seeking.
One of the things I wrote down along those lines in taking notes for this was getting back to that childlike faith and that wonder, the mystery. That question, what, I think is very helpful. Like challenges, job, all this stuff. Instead, my first question is why? Why is this happening? How do I get out of it? You know, how do I formulate a solution? When will this be over? The why, the how, the when, to what extent. That's kind of my bucket of like self-life. But if I can like be an amphibian, you know, like look underneath the water at the kingdom that we're trying to live in, the question is what? What are you up to here, God? Like, what are you doing? What's around the corner? And to me, that's kind of helpful, kind of practical question that I can ask that kind of puts me in that mindset of, okay, maybe there's something bigger going on. Maybe there is some childlike faith that I need to kind of tap into here.
When we don't know something, what we ask is how. And what. Right. So how do I do this? What am I supposed to do? But when we come at it with knowledge, like we assume that we know, then the question is why or why not? And we demand an answer because we already know. And I want to know why whatever's not doing what I need it to do. But when we back up and we embrace the childlike nature that God is asking us to, like come as a child, the child doesn't know. And so then we reduce ourselves back into the humans that we are and not the gods we want to be. And we go to God with the what, Daddy? How, Papa? Show me, teach me, love me, versus the why. Why am I going through this? Why didn't you rescue me? Why, what, how? Like,
why can't I have this? Why didn't this come through?
And that goes back to that understanding piece. Right. We demand the understanding and we lose God.
Reminds me of that John Eldredge quote, and I'll probably butcher it, but paraphrasing here is that in regards to understanding and having God, you often can't have both. If you demand understanding, sometimes you can't have understanding and have God. Right. If you're demanding to know the thing, so it gets in the way.
Right. So if
your relationship with God,
if you seek understanding, you'll gain God. Oh wait, no. If you seek God, you'll get God.
You'll
and sometimes you'll gain understanding too.
Some of the time.
Sometimes.
Sometimes you'll get both.
But sometimes you don't.
But if you demand understanding,
sometimes you don't.
You lose both.
Yeah.
And
so, God's better.
I
mean,
I think we can agree on that.
Just a little bit.
So the second session talked about taking refuge in God. And so if we're pulling away from the internet, how are we stepping in to refuge with God? What's that look like for you guys?
Well, here's what it shouldn't look like. One of the things that I shared is Misty and I were planning, my wife and I were planning a getaway. We do it at the same time every year, which is about this time of year. And we tend to kind of go to the same place, and I was looking up tickets, places to stay, and it's awesome. It's a great getaway for us. And I have everything lined up. And then my wife asked me, The annoying question, well, have you prayed about this? Because I'm not feeling much peace about it right now.
Yeah.
And if I were honest, I didn't really either. I was just going off of, well, this worked before in the couple years, that we've been doing this. So we'll just keep this thing rolling.
Yeah.
Finding my refuge in knowledge. The internet just planned me a great trip. I've got it all right here. Let's get this down. And one of my observations is when she asked me to pray about it, I felt annoyance.
Yeah.
I think, we were talking about it earlier. You had mentioned the word
indignant.
Indignant.
Like, yeah, it's not just annoying. It's like this indignant resolve. Like, how dare you question me?
And so getting back to those questions, my first question to her was, why not? Right back to the immediately out of childlike faith and just running to the information app. They're like, well, look at this deal right here. Well, look at this. These are great deals. We can get away. This is got the time cordoned off. Long story short, we both prayed about it, and she heard not right now, and I heard later. So clearly, it's to be continued. Have no idea why. I don't have understanding on it. But we're going to step in obedience and not do it right now. We'll do it sometime later in the year. We'll figure it out. But what that told me was I need to, when I feel that indignation, when I feel that annoyance, that's not good.
Yeah.
You shouldn't.
We should use it as a warning light, right?
Yeah. Take my life as a warning, guys.
Something you said at the frontier was pay attention to the tension.
Yeah, pay attention to the tension. Totally ripped it off from Andy Stanley. Thank you, Andy Stanley.
No.
He uses this phrase, pay attention to the tension. When you feel that tension, pay attention to it, because that's probably something that God wants to do. He wants to get your attention on that. So pay attention to it.
Yeah, it's a good knock for me to shut up.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. So thank God for good wives that make me pray about things.
Yeah, that frustration comes from me. Anytime I'm excited to buy something, if it's an exciting purchase, like I've done my research, if the numbers work, numbers fit, like I'm not taking the time to go to him. And if that gets suggested, that could be annoying. Whereas flip side, if I'm not excited about something, I'll go right to prayer. Just to find, I don't have peace in
back
this.
Back to the what and the how.
Yeah.
I don't know. God show me.
Yeah.
Right. So you ask, like, how do we find refuge in God? And I'm sitting here, and my honest answer is, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to define that. I know that I find refuge in God. I know that when we retreat and I go backpacking, or we go out on the boat, or we're out in nature, like I tend to refuge there more easily. And I know that, like, I stumble into refuge a lot on accident. Like God is so gracious to me. Like I'll just like trip over something and fall in his arms, and I'm like, whoa, okay, this is good time. I know that when I'm intentional, like it doesn't always feel like refuge. Sometimes it almost feels like bondage or slavery or just the to-do. But what I've found too, like just in my retrospective thinking right now, is that when I do that, and when I'm intentional about not just seeking refuge, but seeking God himself, that I come underneath his authority, underneath his kingdom, underneath his provision and protection. And I notice that my days are different. And so as such, like I'm recognizing that puts me into the refuge of God. It's so that like I'm not just like I think of wartime, like the refuge is like the safe place. It's not
where you want to go.
It's not necessarily pleasant. It's not necessarily like paradise or like roses and like the refuge may be crowded. The refuge may be like we don't have enough food, but we're safe. And so I've like as I mulled it over, like the more I intentionally seek God, the more I find myself under his protection, so that I'm asking how and why more, so that I'm not getting angry. I'm not being indignant. I'm not responding out of my own king godship. I'm responding out of the love that I'm gaining from him by being in that refuge.
You brought up, it reminded me, one of the guys, you said it, and he repeated it on the frontier on Monday night, was the refuge of God doesn't how did he say it? The refuge of God doesn't always exist in our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really good. That's super real.
Yeah.
And you said it too. Like God's refuge isn't a beach paradise. Sometimes he's going to ask us and take a step in obedience in places that, ooh,
Right.
that doesn't feel good. I mean, it can get a lot more difficult than saying no to a vacation right now.
Mm-hmm.
It gets a lot more difficult, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I tend to like early on equate refuge to nourishment and beauty.
Okay. In what way?
So I'm fed, so I'm satisfied, and I'm in somewhere that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's rest. That's recovery, that's restoration. And like I tend to equate refuge to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think refuge is necessarily restoration. Like restoration can happen in the refuge, but refuge, like the more I think about this, refuge is protection.
Mm-hmm.
Refuge is sanctuary.
But it leads to restoration. It leads to
right.
all those
It
things.
gets us into a place where we can be restored. But those two things aren't the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? So I can have refuge without beauty. I can have refuge.
The promise is not beauty or peace, or it's the promise is peace in the storm.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
That's
protection.
So it's turning your heart is exactly what you're talking about, inviting him in to all the things, right? And it's not that all the things will stop or that the storm will cease to exist or any of that, but it's having comfort, contentment, joy, peace.
Yes.
During the storm.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the refuge.
I think of the goggles. Whoa, there's this microphone right here.
Yeah, there's a microphone there.
I think about the water and the goggles, right? Like the all of the world, and like Ephesians 6 talks about how we are at war. And so I immediately think about just like we're being shelled by the enemy. Like these mortars are just shelling us over and over and over, and like we take refuge in God so that we're not harmed, so that we stand in the strength of his might, so that we stand firm in who he is.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I look at myself, or I put myself in the position of God, and I start asking that question, why, and I seek knowledge, then I step outside of that refuge and out of his love into the internet and the comfort there, which leads me blitzed and angry and short, and the list goes on.
Yeah. You know, what comes to mind for me, and I promise this is not over spiritualized, but when thinking of refuge, I've entered into God's refuge a lot of times by him giving me his perspective, his eyes.
Oh yeah.
And so whatever circumstance I'm in or relationship, there's been time I was called out years ago by a friend. There was another person that had done wrong to some people I love, and I was not okay with it, and I was expressing my frustration. And this person asked me, "Have you ever prayed how God sees them?" And I'm like, "I don't want to." And honestly, whenever I did, I could say that my soul entered an area of refuge from, like, it's almost instantaneous too. And it's something we have available to us no matter where, when, or what we're doing. If you can stop and ask God that question about someone, if you're dealing with some relationship stuff, it's almost an instant refuge of like the anxiety, the stress, the anger, frustration. It releases because he'll show you how he sees them. And usually it's not necessarily how you see them, but he'll start bringing
Or
you
how
to
you
that.
want to see them.
Yeah. And then circumstances the same way. You're overwhelmed. You're bogged down by like, "Oh, this is too much for me." And then you ask God, like, how do you see this situation? And he can just pull you up out of that. And he can show you these outer areas that are working together for the good of this hard storm that you're in.
That's good.
Or just simply that he's good. Even if there's no circumstances that are evident of the situation being good, he can still pull you into the mindset of he's good.
Yeah.
And so that's a refuge that doesn't involve any kind of going anywhere or buying anything or eating any kind of food or like,
Right.
man.
But the statement that the refuge of God doesn't exist in your comfort zone, right? That's not easy to do, right?
It's easy to talk about. That's hard to walk.
Yeah. I could say it.
Yeah.
But gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Ryan, you said it. Like, it doesn't mean it's easy. Or what did you say before? It got my mind going. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's better with Jesus, right? Going back to the whole presence
among
of God
the storm.
thing.
Peace among the storm. And just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. Like, we're not promised things are going to be easy.
Yeah, hard.
Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not a refuge, right?
Yeah. Difficult is not the same as bad, right?
Right.
Yeah. And Eldredge says that too. We're just quoting the heck out of that Eldredge today. But he said, guys, I wish it wasn't true, but everything we learn is through suffering.
Yeah.
I can't think of a lesson I've learned that hasn't been through suffering.
So true.
And so, man, and that's what we all desire. We all desire maturity. We all desire spiritual growth. Well, how does that happen? You can be in his refuge while growing through suffering.
You can. Or you could have volitional suffering, which is kind of the opposite side of choosing to go to refuge. One of the things he talks about in Psalm 91, it's a conditional statement. It's also in John 15. It says, if you abide in me, in John 15. In Psalm 91, it's, if you do these things, if you seek me as a refuge, then you'll find what? Protection and, the anointing of the Almighty, all the stuff that we're seeking for. But the conditional statement is if, which points to us that you can choose not to.
We have the choice.
And that can, it's not going to go well.
Yeah. I think of Nahum 1:7 too, that says the Lord is a strong tower. But the second part is that he knows those who take refuge in him.
Yeah.
And so, like, we are known, we are protected. Like,
Is it possible to live life fully in refuge with God at all times? Is refuge something you go in and out of? I mean, the normal broken fleshly selves that we all are, yes, of course, we're going in and out of refuge, right? We've all experienced it, yes, but we've all experienced not being in it. But is that something that's
like,
actually
is it a
available?
State?
Is there a constant state of refuge that we can live in?
Well, I think that's a maturity question, right? Like, how mature are you?
Yeah.
And how childlike are you? And that's kind of an opposing statement, but I think the more mature we become, the more childlike we are.
I'll tell you, for me, it's daily. And there are days where I can knock it out of the park, and I've got just like home run stories of Jesus. It's just like, man, I'm so obedient there. Then I've got some strikeout, take that long walk back to the dugout, suffering of like, man, that didn't feel good at all. That wasn't good. I think, again, kind of goes back to the tail end of session 2. The antidote and the place where you find refuge is consecration, right? The practical step of being in refuge of God is consecration. For me, that looks like taking my self-life bucket, taking everything that's in there, scooping it up, bringing it over here to God, because this is the refuge, and I go plop. And that could be my job, relationships at work, relationships with family, my to-do, everything. God, please, I want this to be in. Just that voicing it to your creator and the acknowledgement and the awareness in me of, okay, this is really yours. I'm giving everything and everyone to you. And that heightens my awareness where I can live in that refuge.
Right. That's what John calls benevolent detachment, right?
Detached from it.
And if you listen to anything John Eldredge, you'll find that in his pause apps, and a lot of times when he starts videos, he's starting that way. He's like, okay, let's stop and let it go. God, I give everyone and everything to you today. And we did that today before we even started this. And it's a frame shift in your mind, a heart shift, and positional.
Well, you were talking like super jittery, super kind of nervous coming in here.
Oh yeah.
You pray before you're coming on here. Benevolently detach and give it to Jesus.
Absolutely.
And boom.
There it goes.
You know,
There it goes. And I don't really get nervous.
Yeah.
Hardly ever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So you've got that benevolent attachment that is giving those things to him, and then consecration is to make holy. And so I believe, like, because we were created to be kings and have kingdoms and rule and reign over those kingdoms, there is an area in all of our lives where what we say goes, and those are our kingdoms, and we can consecrate our kingdoms. We can make things holy within our kingdoms. We have the authority through Jesus Christ that we can step into that and consecrate. And that includes relationships at work.
Yeah.
That includes a hotel room that you step into.
Yep.
That includes an event that you put on, or a car drive, like
or your kids,
or your kids,
your house, right. And so what that looks like is, it's like when I consecrate myself, I'm choosing to align myself with God.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm aligning myself with you in complete treatise, right? So that I'm not warring against heaven, and that I accept all of your decrees.
Yeah.
And then in submission, right? So I'm not just aligning with you, I'm submitting to you.
Yeah.
And so I'm taking your authority and I'm placing it over my authority and over my kingdom in submission to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, this has been a pretty good conversation.
So just go do that, guys.
Yeah, just do
See,
that.
that's easy. We can do that.
I say nothing.
Yeah. And
that's why you need to come to the frontier.
Yes,
though, right?
exactly.
You can't do this alone. I mean, I'm getting nuggets right here. This is awesome.
And this is just the first couple sessions of Eldredge's new book. And so go grab a copy of this or check it out on Audible. Dig into it. I'm halfway through it right now, and I've had it for a couple months, and God's just slowly taking me through it. It's been really beautiful so far. But if you're leaving this podcast with more questions than you came in with, maybe go check that out. Walk through that because this is an excellent discipleship tool to experience Jesus.
I want to say one more thing.
Okay.
Like, I've known you guys for a long time, and one, it's cool. It's a privilege, but at the same time, like, I've seen you guys be dumb. And I know that you've seen me be dumb.
Not me, though, right?
I'm really good. I'm not quite as good at dumb as you.
It's just Ryan. Ryan, tell us something dumb.
Let me tell you what happened last week.
So I want to say that in an encouragement, like, we have come a long ways from where we were. And there's so much ground left to cover.
Yep.
Like this, we're not here to perfect it. We're here to progress in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to be able to walk alongside godly men that not only talk about this, but encourage each other in that way. Yeah. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a man, if you don't have men around you, find it. And one way to do that is to come to the frontier, is to go to base camp, is to surround yourself with godly men, get plugged in a men's group, et cetera, because you can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. Yeah. And I know that I wouldn't be where I am without you men. Yeah. Hands down. No question.
Yeah. That's so
same. I think back to your question of can we live 100% of the time in God's refuge? Probably not this side of heaven. Right? But as we mature, the goal is to get back on track, get back in refuge as soon as possible. And so the periods of time that we go outside of God's plan, outside of God's refuge, becomes shorter and shorter. And then we're walking more and more in unity with him.
Yeah. That's good.
That's so good.
That's good.
Well, thank you guys for coming on this week. And thank you for all leading in the frontier and pouring your hearts out for the men that come each month. Man, it's an incredible experience. Next month, we are doing a bonfire night. So that's May 12th at the True North building. We'll be doing bonfire night. We'll have food. So great time to come and meet all of us and gather around a bunch of really good men. So look forward to seeing you there. I think that's it.
That's it. Yeah. I can't believe we get to do this.
Yep.
Woo-woo.
See y'all next week.